Today, we're going to be discussing the question, are there alternatives that I can use instead of petitioning for guardianship? And we have Shari Polur as our guest. She will give us more information about those alternatives and when they may be successful. Shari, we're so glad to have you with us. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience in working in guardianship?
Absolutely. I'm glad to be here, Becky. I'm happy to be invited. I've had the opportunity to work within the guardianship system in Kentucky for approximately 12 years. Thank you so much for coming in, Alexandra. I'm glad you're here at Polur Elder Law. What brings you in today?
My grandmother is getting older, and someone told me I should file for guardianship for her, so I wanted to consult you about that.
Okay. Well, first of all, tell me a little bit about what your concerns are with your grandmother. Is it physical? Is it about money? What's going on?
It's nothing too physical yet. The only thing I'm worried about for her physical safety, she still has her driver's license, so she'll get in the car and start driving, and then she'll forget where she's going and then just be driving around for hours, which is concerning. The bigger issue I have is that she's giving away a lot of her money to Nigerian princes.
I'm
and
not
that
laughing
kind
at
of
that.
thing.
It's just common.
No, I'm sure. It's common?
Yeah, it's very common. Well, let me give you a couple of sentences about guardianship. So guardianship is over the person, and in Kentucky it's called conservatorship over the finances. And what's happening here is we would actually go to court and have a trial where your grandmother would sadly be stripped of all her rights, possibly to take care of decisions about where she lives or how she deals with things, and also to control her money. After which someone would be appointed by the court to handle decisions about her medical and health, and also about who controls all of her income and all of her assets. That strikes me as a pretty rigorous and unpleasant experience. What do you think?
Is there anything else we can do that doesn't seem necessary?
Absolutely, because as I say to everybody, the first rule of guardianship is don't do it. If we can avoid doing that, that's what we're going to do. So let's talk about some alternatives and see if any of those will work, either temporarily or permanently. I did have one question before we start. Is your grandmother, does she know enough about what she's doing to understand legal documents and sign them?
Absolutely. She's just a little bit forgetful.
Okay. So the first thing that I would consider asking her to do is for you to bring her in and go through what's called a power of attorney document and a healthcare surrogate designation. Do you know what those are, or do you need me to explain those?
No, can you explain them, please?
Yes. So a power of attorney is really just a legal document that controls legal and financial decisions, and if I were signing one and I wanted to give authority to you, I would voluntarily, not by court order, but voluntarily ask you to serve to make those decisions for me. In your grandmother's case, I would be sure that it's durable, meaning it'll last even if she becomes incompetent, and that it be general. It's not like one that people sign just to have someone sell their house if they move out of state. So a general, durable power of attorney. That's really critical. It should be very robust. That's over the financial and legal issues. And for her medical or healthcare decisions, she has a comparable document. It's called a healthcare surrogate designation here in Kentucky. And again, she would be picking an agent like you or someone else to help her with her medical and healthcare decisions. They would be allowed to talk to her doctor. You've heard of HIPAA, right?
Yes.
So it would allow people to not worry about HIPAA and to make those kinds of decisions the way she would want them done. Does that sound like that would be helpful?
Absolutely.
Okay. So the other piece here is that the power of attorney in the healthcare doesn't allow someone to act in ways your grandmother doesn't want to act. So we would want to put some other things in place. Does your grandmother get Social Security?
Yes. Okay. How do we manage that?
Oh, good question, because the POA doesn't help there.
Oh.
For things like Social Security or the VA, if she gets VA benefits from your grandfather, if given her age, I think he might be a World War II vet, she might be getting benefits from those agencies. So for Social Security, you need to sign up. You and your grandmother would have to sign up with the Social Security Administration and get what's called a Social Security Representative Payee form in place. Okay, it's very easy. There's a whole Social Security website that talks about representative payees, and that would allow somebody, even outside the POA, to manage the money coming from Social Security to be used for your grandmother's benefit. And every year they would file a form with the Social Security office saying, Grandma got $1,000 a month and she spent this much on housing, this much on food, and this much on spending. Okay? So those the big three. There are also other ways to help your grandmother not keep feeding the Nigerian princess. So for example, in her bank account, she could very easily add an authorized signer. She could voluntarily allow someone like you to see her online banking transactions. That would be really helpful, right? You're comfortable with a computer. Does Grandma get on the computer at all?
Unless she's answering her Nigerian princess. Not usually.
Not much. Okay. So we would allow someone else to be able to step in and talk to and handle the bank transactions that are going back and forth. Would that give you a little more comfort?
So much more comfort, okay. Yes.
And then there are things like if Grandma has, let's imagine she has an IRA or something, securities at a securities firm. She could ask them to add on what's called a trusted contact. And that's a person who she would list who can be called in the event that unusual transactions are being undertaken. Okay, so if they see a lot of money going to Prince so-and-so from Nigeria, they could call someone without violating their rules about confidentiality. Your grandmother could take one additional step, and this is really unique to Kentucky and just a few other states, called a curatorship. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
No, okay. So the conservatorship is, along with the guardianship, when you strip the person of their rights and you go in and there's a determination of disability.
Right.
The other end of the spectrum is a power of attorney, which is just a voluntary authorization. In between those two steps, there's something called a curatorship. And in Kentucky, your grandmother could go to court and ask the probate court to assign somebody to be in charge of her assets under court supervision without being determined to be disabled. So if the rest of these steps do not help, if she's willing to assign someone, and if she's more comfortable assigning someone under court supervision anyway, she can do that. And what that does is allow somebody to take over voluntarily but still be under court supervision. How does that sound?
That sounds a lot better than guardianship.
Is there anything that we haven't covered that you think might be helpful to your grandmother?
I think you've covered everything. Thank you.
You're welcome.